Apple hits a 52-week low, and dust off your resume because Groupon's looking for a new CEO. Investor Beat starts now. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Hill. The Dow continuing its strong start to 2013, finishing the day in the plus column. So far this year, 10 of the Dow 30 stocks are up more than 10%, with 3M and Procter & Gamble among the top performers. Meanwhile, most of the media coverage is being dominated by talk of sequestration. Joining me in studio today, Jason Moser and Charlie Travers. Guys, we tend to focus on companies here at the Motley Fool. So when it comes to sequestration, Jason, what are the implications for investors?
I don't know that there really are any at this point in the game. And I think that's what I would probably try to communicate to investors in general, is that while it makes for a great headline, trying to predict what is going to happen here with sequestration just is tantamount to timing the market, and we don't do that here, because basically what you're telling me is that if you know what's going to happen, then you have some in with the communique in D.C. With that said, I think investors need to basically keep on doing what they're doing. Maybe make sure you have a little extra cash available for investing, so that if for some reason a headline results in a down day in the market, you have the opportunity to buy a few stocks on your watch list. But overall, I think it's just you got to continue as status quo.
Are there other headlines out there that you think investors are missing? They're not. I mean, again, sequestration is just dominating the coverage, particularly here in D.C. But what are some other headlines that you think probably have a greater impact for investors?
I'm most concerned right now about some of the comments out of the leading retailers in the country, like Walmart and Target. When companies like that touch so many consumers start talking about soft demand out of their own customer base, that makes me a little bit more nervous than any grandstanding headlines about sequestration.
All right, shares of Apple hit a 52-week low. This comes on the same day that hedge fund manager David Einhorn's Greenlight Capital withdrew its lawsuit from Apple. This was Einhorn's attempt to unlock $137 billion in cash. Did he succeed?
Yeah, probably not, Chris. I think that's still up to the board at Apple, and they're certainly holding all the cards here. I think it was a big bluff by Einhorn. I do agree with him, though, and I'd like to see more share buybacks out of the company.
There are some people saying, hey, forget the cash. Let's focus instead on the product pipeline. What do you think right now is a bigger question mark for Apple, their cash or their product pipeline?
Well, I think the market is telling us today that the biggest concern is the product pipeline. With the market being such a forward-looking mechanism, I mean, the share price today now has fallen below $450. That's telling us that there is concern as to what is next, because right now iPhones and iPads look like they're not going to quite cut it. I think Einhorn got what he wanted out of this. He created some interest and some awareness, but really what investors need to focus on now is what is Apple going to do next.
All right, when you look at the stock, as I mentioned, Charlie, shares at a 52-week low, what do you think of it at this level?
Well, the market's a fickle beast, Chris. This is no different a company when it was $700 than it is today. I think it's a great buy here.
All right, we'll get to some of the day's movers and shakers. Shares of Groupon up just one day after the company fired CEO Andrew Mason, and Mason himself admitted it was time for him to go. What do they do now?
That's a really good question, Chris. I just don't know. I mean, we know that they are going to have to go find a new permanent CEO, and I don't necessarily envy that new CEO because he or she is going to have their work cut out for them. This is a business that is not based on just a leader. I mean, they have a very tough market with no competitive advantage and no real defendable position there, so they're going to have to figure out a way to create a stickier, more loyal customer base in order to keep this business growing forward.
With 5 minutes left in Thursday's trading session, news broke that a federal agency was conducting a probe into Intuitive Surgical's Da Vinci system. The stock fell 10% in those final few minutes, but today shares rebounded. And Charlie, you say the phrase FDA investigation, a lot of investors get scared. How nervous should shareholders be right now?
Well, the gut reaction might put your heart up in your throat a little bit, but got to remember, this is a world-class medical device company. It is the undisputed leader in robotic surgery. Very profitable, great balance sheet. I wouldn't be too concerned.
Deckers Outdoor beat on fourth quarter earnings and said they expect UGG sales to improve this year, and Jason, shares down 40% in the last year. UGG sales better improve.
They better improve. And again, another great example of the market looking forward here. I think in general, analysts were expecting somewhere around 3.5–4% revenue growth for this coming year. UGG sees more around 7%, so the market apparently likes that. Still, it's a shoe company, so I got to take this with a grain of salt.
And finally, Best Buy founder Richard Scholl's attempts to take the company private appear to be at an end. Meanwhile, Best Buy's fourth quarter loss came in lower than expected. Charlie, shares up around 30% year to date. Are we finally seeing a turnaround for this company?
I think by any definition of the word turnaround, we are not quite there. Let's refer to it instead as stabilization.
Okay.
Same-store sales were down about 1.7% last year. There are some signs of life online and with smartphones, but let's be realistic here. The competitive dynamic is very intense.
Xbox and PlayStation are two of the dominant brands in video games, but the industry is no longer confined to the living room. Our man Rex Moore reports on the surprising new players in mobile gaming.
As the video game industry shifts more and more toward mobile, hardware makers are playing offense, hoping to score big.
Gaming isn't just for consoles anymore. We see that. The game industry sees that.
Microsoft's Xbox and the Sony PlayStation aren't going away anytime soon, but even their makers are supplementing the fun. There's the PlayStation Vita, for example, with a brilliant OLED screen that can be used separately or in concert with a PS3. There are also some surprises, such as NVIDIA's Project Shield. Based on the Android operating system, it allows access to any game on Google Play and can stream games from a PC. Loaded with the NVIDIA Tegra 4, dubbed the world's fastest mobile processor, it clearly signals the chipmaker's shift toward mobile. But what if you'd rather stick with your smartphone? Well, ZAGG, long known for its cases and protective shields, has an answer. It introduced the Caliber Advantage at this year's CES, a combination case and controller that allows the same type of fine control you get with traditional gamepads.
The gaming industry is moving forward. We've got to enable game developers to create really compelling games on the mobile platform, and that's what Caliber Advantage does. We've created an SDK that game developers like Electronic Arts and Epic can bring new titles out that they couldn't before.
That's something for gamers and investors to keep their eyes on. Reporting for InvestorBeat, I'm Motley Fool analyst Rex Moore.
All right, that's going to do it for Friday. Let's look ahead to next week. Charlie Travers, what is one stock you have on your radar?
Google just made the Fool's list of our 25 most admired companies for good reasons. This is one of the most innovative companies in America, and investors who don't already own shares of Google should give it a look.
All right, Jason, what about you?
Yeah, Transocean has earnings coming out on Monday, and they have been just shellacked ever since the oil spill in the Gulf a couple of years ago. And so they've really kind of reined in their legal problems, a settlement with the Department of Justice. I'm going to be interested to see kind of how the activity is picking up in the Gulf of Mexico. It looks like it's doing well. I'll be interested to see their forecast for 2013, so that's what I'm going to be watching.
Okay, for Jason Moser and Charlie Travers, I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Monday.
People on the show may have interest in the stocks they talk about, and the Motley Fool may have formal recommendations for or against. Don't buy or sell stocks based solely on what you hear.